Hi HTV fans, it is fight day. Yes, Tyson Fury is fighting Dillon White. I am excited to be doing this pre-fight analysis with you. We are going to talk about a whole lot of things, including the strategy and strengths and weaknesses of each fighter coming in. My prediction, you don't want to miss that. And then, of course, what this fight means for each of the boxers. And then some of the surrounding stories going into this fight, including Fury's relationship with Daniel Kinahan. This is Talking Boxing. Let's jump right into it. So before we go into the good stuff, let's talk a little bit about these boxers. Who is Tyson Fury? Let's talk a little bit about him. How did he get here? Everybody knows Tyson Fury. He had a career spanning over a decade and a half. We don't have all the time to talk about it all, but there has been some notable ones that we need to mention. In 2015, he fought Vladimir Klitschko of Ukraine in Germany, where he won in a 12-round unanimous decision. This fight was a very defensive fight between the two fighters. In fact, they threw very, very few punches. But at the end of the day, Fury came out as the winner. But this same fight also cost Fury the IBF title. Why? Because the contract with Klitschko had a clause in there which prevented Fury from fighting the mandatory IBF contender. So he lost the IBF title. And in 2016, things started going downhill for Fury, who had gained a lot of weight, was using cocaine, was drinking lots of alcohol. And in October of that year, he vacated his IBO, WBO, and WBA world titles. That was a very tumultuous time for Tyson Fury. And in one interview during this time, he said, and I quote, "I'm going through a lot of personal demons, trying to shake them off. This has got nothing to do with my fighting. I've been going through depression. All the money in the world, fame and glory means nothing if you are not happy. They say I've got a version of bipolar. I'm a manic depressive. I hope I die every day. And if I could take my own life and I wasn't a Christian, I would take it in a second. I just hope someone kills me before I kill myself. I've been out drinking Monday to Friday to Sunday and taking cocaine." So, obviously Fury was going through a lot. But all that couldn't hold him back. In January 2018, he announced a comeback and mentioned Deontay Wilder as the main reason for coming back. This was the birth of the Fury-Wilder trilogy. So let's talk a little bit about the Fury-Wilder trilogy. In Fury-Wilder 1, it was a draw, though most people believe that Fury won. In Fury-Wilder 2, the boxers displayed some fireworks. In fact, Fury floored Wilder in the third round, but he beat the count. And then Fury knocked him down again in the fifth round, but he was saved, though he looked really, really bad. Eventually, in the seventh round, the fight was stopped. After this win, Fury's story became one of the best comeback stories in sports. Now, if not the best, essentially. A third episode of the Fury Wilder was scheduled. Fury Wilder 3 is one of the best boxing matches I have personally watched. The boxers exchanged 5 knockdowns, but Fury eventually won in the 11th round. Now, that was his last fight before this one going on today versus Dillon White. But who is White? White started his career as a kickboxer. He started boxing in 2011, but it was very short-lived as he was banned in 2012 for testing positive for a banned substance. In 2014, he returned to boxing, beating relatively unknown boxers throughout 2015. And then in September 2015, he fought Anthony Joshua, who eventually knocked him out in the 7th round. However, at this point, White had become more noticeable or more known because he's fighting Anthony Joshua. Whyte then went on to beat a few other guys, and since that fight until he was scheduled to fight Otto Walling. But ultimately he did not fight Otto Walling and decided to wait for Fury for the WBC and the ring titles. So this is how we got here. On 30th December 2021, the WBC president Mauricio Suleiman ordered Fury to defend his WBC title against Whyte and ruled that Fury would be entitled to 80% of the purse compared to Whyte's 20% as the challenger. Now, I mean, this is very disproportionate, but we must remember that Fury is a crowd puller and is the champion. So even though 80% to 20 seemed a little bit steep, he has earned it. Now, Queensberry Promotions won the bid by bidding $41,025,000 or 31 million euros. And they outbid Matchroom, Eddie Hearn's Matchroom. Now, the point must be made here that Frank Warren's of Queensberry's Promotions bid was reported to be, or is still reported to be, the highest successful bid in boxing history. This is huge. Now, the fight is taking place at the 90,000 capacity Wembley Stadium, and tickets were sold out within 24 hours after they announced. Now, Dillian Whyte did not really promote the fight for those that have been following, and did not show up at the first press conference because his team felt that they still had unresolved issues. I mean, anybody can understand why 20% to 80%. But Fury had a field day that day, doing a one-man press conference. For those, if you have not watched it, you may want to go watch it now before tonight's fight. Now, a lot went on between the first press conference and the fight day today. Notably, when Fury was asked about his relationship with Daniel Kinahan, he said, and I quote, "The man has been a boxing fan. There's not much more I can say. There's not much more of a relationship. There is none. What other people do in their lives, I've got my own troubles and my own problems to work on myself with a wife and six kids. I keep my business to myself." Now, for those of you who don't know who Daniel Kinahan is, Daniel Kinahan is apparently a drug lord who is now wanted by the United States, has several sanctions against him and some of his family members. And so it's a big deal when someone like Fury is apparently affiliated with him. That's why he was asked this question. All right, don't forget to subscribe if you are listening to this, or follow us. Now, let's talk a bit about the boxer's strengths and weaknesses and strategy going to the fight. But before we do that, a bit of their boxing genealogy for watchers who may not know. Of course, the boxers are both British, and they were former sparring partners. Also note that both trainers in this fight are prodigies of the legendary Emmanuel Stewart. In case you didn't know, Emmanuel Stewart is a legend in boxing. Now, Javan Sugarhill, who is Tyson Fury's trainer, is actually Stewart's nephew. And Harold Knight, who is Whyte's trainer, was an understudy of Stewart. So we may see some similarities in some of the things that they do, but I thought that this was interesting for those listening. Now to the analysis. Oh yes, and my prediction later, don't forget to wait for that. All right, so let's talk about Whyte. Whyte is coming in hungry, and it will also be coming in angry as well. I mean, he has been waiting for a shot at the WBC for a long time, and this is arguably his biggest fight in his career. So he's looking to make a statement. Combine this with the fact that he's getting less of the purse. I mean, if I was him, I'll come in hungry and I'll come in angry at the same time. So with all those attributes, he may pull a surprise. Who knows? Let's also not forget that Whyte gave Fury problems in his early career when they were first starting out. But I mean, Fury is now a better and more aggressive fighter than White. And this was evident by how he disciplined Wilder in the last of the trilogies. Now, the other thing is White is a big jabber and is always in the face of his opponent. This means that if White brings his A game, Fury will stay busy. Perhaps the biggest attribute of White is his power. Dillon White has a lot of power and it's essentially all he's got. Despite Fury taking the punches, he went down a few times when he fought Wilder. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he did it again in with Dillion's power. It can still happen. White has some weaknesses and they need to be mentioned. His lack of competitive fights in recent times can definitely affect him. If you're a boxer and you are not fighting, good fighters, it can affect you when you are going in with someone like Tyson Fury. So that can definitely be a weakness for him. And also he lacks speed both in his hands and his feet. He got power, but he lacks speed. And over time, Tyson Fury has been able to improve there a bit. And I think when it comes to the speed, he's probably better than White in this case. But an attribute like power and coming in angry can show surprises. So we should watch out for that. Now let's talk about Fury. One thing we have learned from Fury is that he can take a beating. Wilder is one of the best pound for pound heavy hitters, but Fury took it and still kept going, especially in their last of the trilogies. So he can take a beating, he can take power, so that's a good thing. Fury is also patient. If you watch him, he's patient and he can be very elusive, and that can help him here a great deal. But I think in general, Fury's IQ in the ring and reflexes is going to win the day. He understands the game and he can read it and do what he needs to do. So I think that's what he's going to use to win the day. Though he's mentally strong in the ring, he also lacks some speed and power in the punch. So without power, definitely White has better chances when it comes to power in his punch. So with these strengths and weaknesses of these boxers, I think Fury should do what he does best. Read the fight, throw as many punches as he can. White, on the other hand, needs to come in a bit aggressive and depend on his power punches. He should go for the big body of Fury and tire him out, despite the fact that we all know Fury can take a beating. But I think if the power in the punch is strong enough, it can weaken him. So what is my prediction? Well, before I tell you, let's quickly talk about what this means for both fighters. For Fury, he summarized it in pure Fury faction by saying, "I'm a two-time undisputed world champion. I have 150 million euros in the bank and nothing to prove for anybody." So this essentially is retirement fight for Fury, who indicated this will be his last fight. We boxing fans wish him well with the rest of his life and family and outside boxing. I know we'll see him around. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I quite remember watching him sing for Bob Arum last year in New York. The guy is a fun guy to be around, and we hope he sticks around boxing and doesn't go in the shadows. For White, this is what he has dreamed of, and I'm sure he hopes to relaunch his career with a win over Fury, taking the WBC title. Now to my prediction. Well, White has strong power and has a solid hook and seems to improve from fight to fight if you have been watching him, and may pull a big surprise. However, Fury's IQ in the ring is massive, and it would take some divine intervention for White to walk over Fury. So I predict a 7th round knockout by Tyson Fury. Thanks for tuning in, and please comment, share, subscribe, and follow.